So many of us have watched with absolute horror as we've been marched step by step towards an authoritarianism that was unthinkable 40 years ago. Empire resurrected and unapologetic, war without end, an undefined enemy that's supposed to be a rallying point for a new kind of energized jingoistic patriotism, unprecedented and unapologetic military expansion, white supremacy changing its form, but essentially intact, attacks on women and girls, violent attacks, growing surveillance in every sphere of our lives, on and on and on, the targeting of gay and lesbian people as a kind of a scapegoating gesture to keep our minds off what's really happening. Now that's not the whole story, but it's without a doubt a strand that runs through it. And so thinking about some of the great things about what we want to celebrate today, and in my case thinking about Bert in particular and some of the lessons that he taught, I think one is this lesson that we have to be willing to open our eyes. For most of us, the older folks in this room, I think the experience of the 60s was the first time we kind of looked up and opened our eyes and saw a world in flames and felt that we had to do something about it. Now, one of the things we had then that we have to remember is we had a view that we could change things. We believed that we could make a difference. And that gives you, no matter what you're up against, it gives you a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of willingness to go and get your head busted or risk your job or risk your freedom. Because you say, you know, together we really are going to change things. We have to open our eyes, see the world as it is, get a vision of what else could be, what the options are, what the alternatives are. I love the slogan from the World Social Forum, another world is possible. It's our responsibility to put some meat on those bones and to help define what that other world is. Because if another world isn't possible, as intolerable as this world seems, people put up with it. People are cynical, they're wise to it, but at the same time, how do we move if we can't change it? How do we do anything if we're stuck here? So we open our eyes, we imagine another world, we put it in moral terms. One of the things that I think we discovered about ourselves is even though we think of ourselves as political, we weren't politicians. We were people who had a moral vision of what was possible. And when we talk, for example, about healthcare or about peace, we're talking a language of ethics, not a language of instrumentalism or opportunism or what we might get. So we have to speak in a language that's large and generous and encompassing. And then we have to act. And after we act, we have to doubt. And this is something that, well, Bernadine and I always feel that this is where we lost our bearings for a while. You have to act, but you have to doubt. I speak for myself, right? That if you're certain that what you're doing is right, then you make the mistake of dogmatism and sectarianism, which we surely did at the end of the decade. So it's this idea that you act and then you doubt, but doubting can't immobilize you. You then have to act again with new wisdom, with new knowledge, and that, it seems to me, is the rhythm of what we should be kind of searching for. For me, this is a time not only of great stress and oppression and authoritarianism and a kind of rising, incipient American form of fascism. And what the government counts on, what the powerful count on, is that we will stay quiet, that we'll close our eyes. So we see the photos of Abu Ghraib, and then, well, should I make a reservation for dinner and a show? You know, a soldier is brought back from Iraq missing her face and both legs. Yeah, I wonder if I should put a down payment on that car. It's the idea that we can tolerate these intolerable things without screaming, without somehow coming out, joining up and coming out and saying something. It's what they count on in terms of keeping things under control. And so we have to figure out how to break from that. I think this is a moment of unprecedented opportunity for movement building. And by that I mean, a movement is quite different than a project or an organization or a campaign, although all those things are part of it. A movement is when people can make the connections between, as we used to say in the civil rights movement, between a rotting shack and a rotting system, between a war in Iraq and the targeting of gay and lesbian people at home, between the rights of immigrant laborers in Chicago and in the Southwest and what happened in New Orleans. And this is something, you look at three great movements that are happening right now, but are disconnected. The anti-war movement, way too white. The New Orleans movement, way too isolated as an African-American movement. The immigrant rights movement, way too isolated as a Latino movement. How do we make the connections, find the common ground, and work together? So this, to me, is the challenge, to develop a vision and to talk to one another across movements. Now, I recognize that a movement can't be willed into being, but neither can we wait for a movement to happen. If you look at the history of the civil rights movement, there was organizing going on every year for the decades before 1954, before 1956, before 1963. When the time came, as Miles Horton used to say, you know, there's mountain times and valley times. And when the mountain times came, the organizing that had gone on for all those years counted for something. So I don't think we can wait. I think we have to begin to develop a courageous conversation across organizations, across movements, looking for that common ground and that common strand that can bring us together. Most of all, I guess what we need is, it can be summed up by rethinking about, I'm thinking about Bert, but I'm also thinking about the Wizard of Oz. And if you think about the four seekers marching down the yellow brick road, what is it they were looking for? They had to have a brain, a heart, the nerve, and a home. And those are the four things that we need. We need a brain, a heart, the nerve, and a home. And one thing we know, which we didn't know when we were kids, is there is no wizard who can figure it out for us. We have to figure it out for ourselves. And it's up to us to build the kind of movement that can really transform and save humanity. Thank you.